Good morning, Trump's family. Welcome back to my channel. Have a good day, everyone, and God bless you. Alright, let's get into the news this Tuesday morning. Okay. A leftist YouTube journalist got some inside intel from flight trackers that President Trump had landed in DC last night. He landed with a polo shirt and golf shoes very informally. No knows why he was here. And of course, the left is going absolute ape crap crazy, going with conspiracy theories like he's in here for indictment. He is going to Walter Reed, and then others saying he's going to Walter Reed to escape indictment, others saying he was going to golf even though it's not necessarily golf weather, and there was all kinds of speculation. So let's see what President Trump himself had to say. We get this from President Trump himself. He truth out working today at Trump, Washington, D.C. on the Potomac River. What an incredible place. That's pretty much it. Now, we do know that the Gateway pundits spoke with their contacts on the Trump team. We're told, quote, President Trump is okay. So that's all we know, as of this moment, that President Trump is okay, and that he's working from the Trump National Golf Club in D.C. We don't know much more than that when we do our report on it. Okay, we've got other Trump news and troubling news, folks. If you recall, the Trump-appointed Judge Aileen Cannon called for a special master in the Trump raid, or the FBI raid of Trump's home in Mar-a-Lago. And she also enjoined, in other words, stopped the DOJ from continuing forward with reviewing the materials and going on with their investigation with those documents until the special master has reviewed the case. So once again, the request for special master was granted by Judge Aileen Cannon. And the biggest part here, of course, that the Biden team, the Biden Department of Injustice, and the fake Bureau of Intimidation don't like is the part that Judge Keenan temporarily enjoining them or forbidding them from your reviewing or using the cease materials, pending the completion of the review. Well, you know, how Dr. Savage, I don't know, 15-20 years ago, I think is the first time I heard him say it, where he said, you know, liberalism is a mental disorder or something of that sort. We've got some judicial and some legal framework for this story. Check this out. We have a Texas woman who was arrested and charged with threatening to kill the federal judge presiding over Trump's special master case. Tiffany Che Gish of Houston is obviously falling into the false narrative about President Trump having dangerous nuclear codes and confidential classified information that he shouldn't have at his home. This lady, I don't know if she's been brainwashed by CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times and the Washington Post, the Huffington Post and all the other lying leftist rags. But a few days ago, about a week ago, Gish left 3 threatening voicemails starting on September 1st, for Judge Aileen Cannon using the pseudonym Evelyn Salt. When I first heard them, like, who is John Galt? No, this person probably hasn't read any of Ayn Rand stuff. So actually, Evan Salt is as an allusion to the fictional Russian agent played by Angelina Jolie in the thriller Assault. They're supposed to set off a series of movies. If you see in the movie, the very end, it leaves you kind of a cliffhanger like, oh, we're gonna get more of these movies, and no, we don't, because for the most part, people don't want woke action movies that are, while man was saying that we don't want women protagonists, but you know, it just didn't work. I guess. This is what she said. She said Trump is marked for assassination. And so are you. That's what Gish said in one of her threatening messages to Judge Aileen Cannon. So according to CNBC, Magistrate Judge Peter Bray ordered to get detained pending trial because, and this is where Dr. Savage was correct, she appears to suffer from severe mental impairments, with symptoms including paranoia and delusions. A Texas woman has been charged with threatening to kill the federal judge presiding over a dispute between former President Donald Trump and Department of Justice about record season and FBI raid of Trump's phone last month. So that is what CNBC is reporting, and the criminal complaint was filed on September 6th. And Gish claimed to be in charge of nuclear for the government, a federal agent and a Trump's had man who had a license to kill. Very strange thing. She also went on to say, you're full of shyster and I'm going to expletive have you shot myself. I've already ordered snipers and a bomb to your expletive house. That's another voicemail that she said, you know, because the left are tolerant and loving. Now this person may be mentally deranged. Now it'd be par for course for the hard leftists. When agents came, though, residents, Gish would initially only speak through a balcony window, but eventually ended the agents in and spoke with them for about 45 minutes. Give them the interview. So she left the voicemails from her cell phone and also confirmed that a Facebook account with posts echoing the language the voicemails belonged to her according to the complaint. So there's a real domestic terror threat. Oh, but he's not right-wing, so you probably won't hear much about it. We've got more Trump news, folks. Trump is firing back with his lawyers after the DOJ asked to continue review of the documents seized by the FBI. So we just went over how, as a reminder, that Judge Can and the Trump-appointed judge said, "Hey, we're the Sabbath special master. And the DOJ can't continue to review the documents until they've been reviewed by the special master." That's kind of the terms of the whole thing. Well, of course, as we know, the DOJ doesn't like that. And they are asking to be able to continue their work, even though the special master hasn't done the review yet. President Trump's lawyers on Today, Monday the 12th, urged a federal judge to reject the Department of Justice bid to continue reviewing documents that were taken during the FBI raid of Mar-a-Lago. Trump's lawyers argued that the materials that were taken by FBI agents on August 8 may not be classified. While he was president, Trump had broad latitude in declassifying documents and has a right to access any presidential records, whether they are classified or declassified, the Chinese added, quote, "And what is the core?" quote, "And what is at its core is a document storage dispute that has spiraled out of control. The government wrongfully seeks to criminalize possession by the 45th president of his own presidential and personal records." That's what Trump's team wrote in a. So that's what we have on September 12. Trump's lawyers argued that Mar-a-Lago, a sprawling resort and golf club located in Florida, is a secure facility. Mar-a-Lago is a secure company with controlled access, and was utilized regularly to conduct the official business United States during the Trump presidency, which to this day is monitored by the United States Secret Service. That's a good point. So the Secret Service is still monitoring it. So does that mean it's unsecure? Isn't what the Secret Service by definition, when they say a place is safe, that it is actually secure? That's a very good argument by Trump's lawyer. Quote, "The government generally points the elected urgent need to conduct a risk assessment of possible unauthorized disclosure of reported classified records. But there's no indication any purported classified records were disclosed to anyone." Trump's team asserts that as president, quote, "he enjoys absolute authority on the executive order to declassify any information. And there's no legitimate contention that the chief executive's declassification of documents requires approval of bureaucratic components of the executive branch. There's an argument that they've made before that we've broken down right. A parent doesn't need their children's consent to stay out past a curfew because it's the parents that put curfews in place. That's my example. And I'll stick with it. So we've got some more news here, though. Trump has said on social media and an interview that he declassified a range of materials while he was president. At one point he pointed to a memorandum that he issued on his final day in office that declassified certain documents relating to the FBI's Crossfire hurricane investigation, which I pointed out on this show that he had moved out. But check this out in the special master court battle. Trump's proposed vessel masters were Paul Huck Jr., a Florida-based attorney who advised former Governor Chris Christie, and Raymond Derry, a former federal judge from New York who also served on the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. I don't know if I want someone who or Vice Governor Chris Christie. A Florida-based attorney who had formerly advised Governor Charlie Crist, and another judge from New York that was on the FISA court. The DOJ, meanwhile, proposed Barbara Jones, a former judge who has handled several special master duties of recent high-profile cases. And Thomas Griffith, a former federal appeals court judge. She retired 2 years ago. Now, we already talked on a previous episode about Barbara Jones, who was involved in every single dirty thing, pretty much, that the FBI, the DOJ and the state has been trying to hide over the last several years. And that is why Trump's team is opposing the DOJ as Mar-a-Lago special master candidate. So he was next. Story. Donald Trump's lawyers on Monday filed a motion objecting to special masters candidates proposed by the Department of Justice. Trump's attorney, 3-page filing, asked for, quote, "permission to express our objections to the government's nominee only at such time that the court specifies a desire to obtain it and consider that information. There are specific reasons why those nominees are not preferred for serve as a special masters in this case." Now, this letter of saying is going to provide a reason for why they oppose the DOJ. And that's because, quote, "is more effective, respectful to the candidate to not include their reasons from a public, and likely to be widely circulated pleading. So President Trump's folks, unlike the deep state, dirty, disgusting Democrat and deep state operatives, the treasonous traitor bastards who are unelected ruining our country. We're talking about bureaucrats and all other types of people with and without the Biden regime, many of them there before President Trump, during President Trump, and still there. They said, hey, look, we object to the two choices that Biden has, and the DOJ have offered up. But since you guys leak everything, we're not going to tell you why we are out of respect to these people. To these candidates, we're not going to include our reasons for objecting, because we don't trust you guys to not make it public, quote, as a court's order required a list of proposed special master candidates, but did not specify whether that includes special advocacy as to why certain nominees are or not suitable to serve as special masters, has construed that order in a limited fashion. The court demands that Trump's team would be, quote, willing to provide our specific rationale for the court's orders. And then, of course, they had issued their own nominees. Very interesting thing that's going on here, folks, and boy, again, food's making this a big pain before the midterms, which is what they're trying to do, which is why, as reported here, first, it was 35. And then we got the number 50, warrants, raids and subpoenas served on President Trump's folks. And now we have even more details about this. So here we go. This will be our last story. The New York Times Justice Department issues 40 subpoenas in a week, expanding its January 6 inquiry. That's right. This is everything they're doing. This is to be abandoned, says this is the dying breath of a fallen or losing regime. I'm not as optimistic as him. Why? Because there have been no damn consequences for any of the shenanigans and skullduggery, subterfuge and anything else you want to call the dirty deeds of the deep state dastardly players, and so they continue to do it. They get away with it. They act with impunity, and they'll continue to act that way. So it's kind of hard to be positive and not sound like some kind of PSYOP agent saying, oh, yes, everything's under control. Don't you worry, everything's under control. And we're going to win when we see no signs of it. Usually before you win a war, you have several decisive battles won, and I'm not seeing that. Not trying to be negative, Nancy. I'm just trying to be a realist. Justice Department officials have seized the phones of 2 top advisors to President Donald Trump and blanket his aides with about 40 subpoenas and a substantial escalation of the investigation into his efforts to subvert back a couple of years ago. People familiar with the increase said on Monday, the seizure of the phones, coupled with a widening efforts to obtain information from those around Mr. Trump after the election, represents the most aggressive steps the department has taken it as far as criminal investigation into the actions that led to the events of that day at the Capitol. By the way, even New York Times is calling it because they're obviously on the side of the Marxist, missing the most aggressive steps. How about illegal? How about unconstitutional? How about Stacey, Gestapo jackboot actions? Tyrannical actions? That would be a better description. Okay. So federal agents were court-authorized with court-authorized search warrants took phones last week from at least 2 people that we know of: Boris Epstein or Epstein, and an in-house counsel who helped coordinate Mr. Trump's legal efforts of a couple of years ago. I'm going to details, you know what I'm talking about. And Mike Roman, a campaign strategist who was the director of election day operations for the Trump campaign in 2020. Mr. Epstein and Mr. Roman have been linked to a critical element of Mr. Trump's jumps. Okay. Mr. Epstein and Mr. Roman have been linked to a critical element of Mr. Trump's bid to hold on to power. Something having to do with electors. We won't go into details because we don't want to get in trouble with this campaign. I'm just reporting what they did, but it may be misconstrued. Okay, let's just say that they had questions about what happened a couple years ago, and they weren't convinced. The names of those receiving the latest round of subpoenas and investigation related to January 6 have dribbled out gradually, with investigators casting a wide net of a range of issues, including Mr. Trump's posts, selection, fundraising and so-called ski scheme having to do with electors. Okay. So, when the recipients we know was also danced at Scavino, Mr. Trump's former social media director. Thank you very much. WWG1WGA. Give me your thoughts below